to do is take a step back, look at the sports bubble, take a step back, and you are going to realize the absurdity of Florida State doing their cash grab, Florida State being brazen, Florida State being greedy. Really? That's what you're seeing? Welcome to episode 349 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Pat Forde, Sports Illustrated. We're going to be going through the article, not the whole article. We will provide a link in the description and you can read the whole thing. Let's take a look. This was yesterday. Step back from college sports bubble and you'll see how absurd Florida State's money grab is. Florida State is no means the first school to lose common sense in pursuit of riches, but is quite possibly the most brazen. We almost completely disagree with this article from Pat Forde. Again, we're not attacking him. We're just disagreeing with him. And you can disagree with me, PATC, in the comments section below the video. But this article, and again, we're not going to go through the whole thing. We're going to skip about the top half of it. This article is missing the big key component to why Florida State is doing what they're doing. And if you don't understand the motivation of why Florida State is doing what they're doing, well, you're missing the whole story. The motivation is missing in this article. Again, we're going to skip the first half of the article. The same hard to justify comparisons can be written about many facets of life in developing versus wealthier countries like ours, but I write about college athletics. Again, this is Pat Forde, Sports Illustrated. I'm part of the ravenous machine and have made a good living within it, and currently King football is at the greediest point in its 150-plus year history, lacking in self-discipline, immune to shame, accustomed to getting its way from feckless university presidents, unwilling to work for the common good, addicted to the injections of TV money, divorced from the rest of the campus, gripped by the fear of falling behind in the arms race. Some of that, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, we know it's not all good in the college football world. No question about it. But again, it misses the motivation of Florida State and Texas and Oklahoma and USC and UCLA and why Yormark poached the Pac-12 would continue on. The destruction of much of what made college athletics great in the first place has gone up-tempo. Conferences are collapsing. Regionality is a joke. Olympic sports are in peril. The academic underpinning of higher education is endangered by the increasing real prospect of an unlimited transfers. It might soon be time to kick football off campus, making it a fully professional sports, license out nicknames, school colors, and other trappings associated with the universities. Rent the stadiums on Saturdays and practice facilities during the week, but otherwise the players and coaches would have nothing to do with actual college. Now, some of that, this is the best paragraph in the article, in my opinion. Maybe we're going to have to go to that. But until we are there, Florida State is acting on its own self-interest. We'll get to that in a second. None of this is to say that Florida State is committing the original sin here. It's merely the latest example. Texas and Oklahoma began detonating the landscape in 2021. USC and UCLA followed in 22, and the rest of the Pac-12 schools fled for their own money grabs this year. Again, it didn't start with Texas and Oklahoma. We'll get to it in a second. It's missing, this whole article is missing the big component in the changing landscape of college football. Texas and Oklahoma realized it. So did USC, now Florida State. We'll get to it in a second. With a growing revenue gap between Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten and everyone else, the ACC is the next vulnerable target in the power consolidation game. The thing that pushes this particular grab for cash over the top is the ACC grant of rights agreement, signed by Florida State in 2016, that theoretically binds the league's members together until 2036. But honoring the contract is for suckers. The school wants out at what could be a staggering loss of revenue, at least $350 million, according to some estimates, perhaps up to $500 million, with no clear landing place. No clear landing space. Maybe it's not clear exactly where Florida State would land, but they do have a landing space, at least according to what we've been told here at Peek Around the Corner. Take that how you ever want to take it, but no clear landing space. Don't agree with that. Is it exactly clear where they're going to go? Of course, it's not exactly clear, although the Big Ten is the heavy chalk at this point. It is one of the most brazen power plays in college sports history, and it could trigger the most upheaval in college sports history. It could set in motion the annihilation of the ACC, or at least a vast diminishing of the conference, because if Florida State pulls this off, then others will follow. Clemson has been considered very connected to Florida State, per a well-placed source earlier this year. Sports Illustrated, Pat Forde reported that a few months ago. Miami would be the third football first ACC school that could bail. And then all that could free up North Carolina, Virginia, which have been considered the most desirable ACC properties for both SEC and the Big Ten. They would open up new TV markets in new states while keeping the SEC geography continuous, and their academic cachet could be valuable. No, really. Does the SEC want Florida State? Initial indications are no. There is resistance within the league, and it stands to reason that ESPN, which is the media hub of both the SEC and the ACC, would be opposed to the destruction of the league. It has under contract for 13 more years at an advantageous rate. But if it comes down to a choice between losing the nose to the Big Ten or taking them, the SEC stance might change. It could change. Absolutely. The SEC could play defense in regards to Florida State going to the Big Ten. That's why when you say there's no clear landing space or landing spot, it's not clear because you don't know which way they're going to go. But Florida State, let's make it clear. Florida State will have a landing spot if it's able to leave the ACC. That's part of the motivation, but not the big motivation. We'll get to it in a second. The hard charging, already bloated Big 12, is it really bloated? Which will have 16 members starting next year, presumably would take anyone that adds football value. The Seminoles, the Tigers, to a lesser extent, the Hurricanes would do that. Florida State used a snub from the college football playoff, a bad decision and a no-win situation for the playoff selection committee, as the catalyst for a push to sue its way out of the ACC. But being passed over for a 14 playoff could be considered cover for what the school has wanted to do for months, if not years. Absolutely correct. Pat Forde, getting the snub from the playoffs is not what made Florida State do this. They might have rushed it a little bit, but Florida State, this was in their plans for quite a while. In August, some in the ACC believed the Seminoles would file to leave the league before the August 15th deadline for membership in 2024. That date came and went, but the intent to leave never died. Instead, the idea was to take a longer runway into the quantum leap. The idea of waiting 365 more days to declare if it wanted to leave the league is not the concept one ACC source familiar with FSU's thinking told Sports Illustrated. So now the bell has rung. Florida State has sued the ACC. The ACC has sued Florida State. Life is just intolerable trying to get on by a budget of $160 million. That misses the point. Life is just intolerable trying to get on by a budget of $160 million. That completely misses the point. We'll explain in a second. Despite the erroneous financial burden, the Seminoles somehow had enough nickels to rub together to build a 63-person football staff under head coach Mike Norvell. According to the athletic department's website, they had enough money to pay Norvell's $8 million this year they had enough program momentum to go 13-0. ACC schools, disadvantaged as they are, have somehow won 3 of the last 10 college football national championships and played in 2 other title games. The league somehow won 4 national titles this fall alone in Olympic sports. We're going to stop right there. You can read the whole article in a link provided. Again, all of that misses the point of what is going on. Congratulations, by the way, to the ACC for winning 4 national titles in Olympic sports in this fall alone. Congratulations. Congratulations to Florida State having an unbelievable season going 13-0. Yes, Florida State is able to pay Mike Norvell's big salary, a salary that he earned, by the way, especially this year. Yes, Florida State has a $160 million athletic department budget. That's beautiful, great, fantastic. Again, you say that Florida State is being greedy, being brazen. It misses the complete point of what is going on. Texas and Oklahoma left the Big 12 to go to the SEC, not because it was going to be easier to win championships in the SEC. The Texas had an athletic budget of $200 million when they left. $200 million, and that was 4 years ago. But they still left. Oklahoma left. UCLA and USC left the Pac-12 to go to the Big 10 because of the courts. The change in landscape of college football, it's happening in the courts. NCAA is not considered legit by the courts. All the rulings are going against the NCAA. The suits are following. Money's going to have to be given in these suits from the schools and the conferences. There's going to be a change in landscape in college football. Student athletes are going to be getting higher and higher compensated, directly from the conferences and especially from the schools. More money is going to be needed. The schools, if you want to compete at the highest level of college sports, college football, college basketball, and even in the years ahead in these Olympic sports, you're going to have to bring the goods. You're going to have to bring the resources to bear and give it to the student athletes. That's what Oklahoma and Texas realized 4 or 5 years ago. That's what UCLA realized. That's what Florida State is realizing. Yes, they went 13-0. Ladies and gentlemen, the money gap hasn't even started. The Big Ten's current media contract is only just begun. The SEC media's contract begins July 1st, 2024. The money gap is just starting, and it's going to be huge for the next 13 years. But even more important than the money gap is these schools are going to be able to utilize, because they are going to be able to press the advantage of having the money gap over Florida State, over Clemson, over North Carolina, over Miami, Florida, because the student athletes are going to be able to be compensated at a higher level. That's why Florida State is doing what they're doing, not to be greedy, but to be able to compete at the highest level of college athletics. This story didn't talk about the courts, didn't talk about the judgments against the NCAA, didn't talk about the judgments against now the transfer portal. These schools didn't wake up one day and said, let's just do the biggest money grab possible, because they have to now to compete at the highest level. The money advantage is going to be bigger than ever. You try, as a school, if you want to compete at the highest level, you got to get over what we would deem the stratification line. That is why USC called the Big Ten. We broke that story March 31st, 2022, when most college football writers and reporters didn't know what the future, didn't know that it was coming, didn't understand it, didn't understand why the Big Ten would want to grab USC, but more importantly, they didn't understand why USC would want to join the Big Ten. It's the same reason why Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC. It's the same reason why Brett Yormark tried to get his schools to the highest ground possible in this rushing water of changing football landscape and college athletics landscape to poach when they went and poached the Pac-12. It's why Colorado took the invite to the Big 12. It's why Florida State is suing the ACC to try to get out of the conference, even if it costs them money here in the short term. The motivation isn't greed. It's the want, the will, the need to compete. That's the motivation, not greed, not being brazen, not a cash grab. They just want to compete. That's it. That's all Florida State wants. They want to be able to compete at the highest level of college sports. And so does a few other ACC schools. And they do have landing spot. Some of them, not a whole lot, but some of them. And we're going to see how it all plays out in the weeks and months ahead. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Let me know how wrong I got it once again in the comment section below the video. But greed, brazen, it's the courts that have ignited this. And now everybody's scrambling to try to be able to make sure that they can compete at the highest level of college sports. And that includes Florida State University, the Seminoles. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.